known as the Hardway, Mr. Rod Price.
Ah, it's great to be here. Great to be here.
Mr. Price, welcome to WGS Radio. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Well, Mr. Price, first off, all of my guests get this. So, applause. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come and talk with us here on WGS Radio. So, I like to start off all my interviews like this, sir. Is how did you first become interested in professional wrestling?
I started in professional wrestling when I was out in California. I was going to college. I was in junior college, as a matter of fact, and a little low on funds, and I was doing anything or everything I could to get some extra dough. I was doing commercials out there, and I did one for Miller's Outpost, which was a little clothing cowboy western wear type thing, and they were doing a commercial about professional wrestling. It was cutting high prices, and I was the wrestler High Price.
High Price?
Yeah, and I happened to run into Red Bastien. He was one of the commercials consultants out there, and he slipped me a card and said, if you want to be a professional wrestler, come look me up, and that's what I did.
Now, before you started in professional wrestling, that you were also an NFL player, correct?
Well, I started professional wrestling before I became an NFL player. I did both, actually, because in that day, they don't make the $1 million contracts like they do now. We were blue-collar, carry-your-lunch guys, and I was making $50,000 a year playing professional football.
Now, from what I understand, that you suffered a knee injury, which pretty much ended your NFL career?
That's correct. I was with the Raiders my first year, and I got hurt in camp. Finished the season, they held me on the practice squad all year, and the knee was never the same. I bummed around with San Diego Chargers a couple of years after that, and I went to the San Francisco 49ers for about 6 weeks, and the knee just gave out.
Tell us what Red Bastien was like. What kind of person he was, and what kind of person he was towards you in your training to become a professional wrestler?
Well, when you're a snot-nosed greenhorn like I was about 21 years old and weighing about 320 pounds and thought I could kill the world, he was hard but fair, and worked my ass off, did as much as he could to take that cockiness out of me, which didn't work for many years. But Red Bastien was great. He taught me a lot about the business before I got into the business.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for the Hardway Rod Price, you know what you have to do. You have 3 ways to get in. One, we have the Blog Talk Radio chat room, which is open right now, blogtalkradio.com/WGS Radio. You can also call in on our toll-free number, 1-877-604-2496. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that is 1-877-604-2496. Also, if you have Skype, you can also get in for free via your Skype line. Be sure you go up where it says click to talk with the Skype logo. Just click on that, and boom, automatically you're in just like that. Mr. Price, can you tell us when and where you had your very first match as a professional wrestler?
Sure do. Remember it like it was yesterday. We were in Montclair, California at Rock Around the Clock Bar, and they had a little, AWA had a little spot show there, and that was my first match. I worked the Samoan Bulldog.
Wait, the AWA, the American Wrestling Association?
Yeah, Vern Gagne.
Well, what kind of place was that like? I mean, what kind of atmosphere was it like in the AWA when you just first started being a wrestler over there? What kind of people, what were the people like over there?
You mean the fans, or are you talking about the workers?
Well, the fans and the workers.
Well, the fans were great because that was the early '80s, and wrestling was smoking hot. And for a little venue, that place was packed out. The fans were great. They were easy, and it was a lot of fun. I was playing a heel. I had to wrestle under a hood because I was wrestling as Jason the Strong, kind of a takeoff of Friday the 13th gimmick. But I had to wrestle under a hood because of I was in college, and they had a big thing about amateur athletes then. And you can ask Bush about it.
All right. Was it very difficult to wrestle under a hood? I mean, was there any airway or sight constrictions when you had the hood on?
Oh, there's a lot of, when you're wearing a hood, it's hard to see. Your peripheral vision is gone, and it's hard to breathe, especially in a hot building. And those veterans took full advantage of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a caller on the line from the 949 area code. What's your name? And
hey guys, how you doing? Sorry I'm a little late. I had some technical difficulties, but it's me, Rick Starr. How you doing?
yes, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, Mr. Price, this is our Blog Splash News analyst, the shining star himself, Rick Starr. He covers the news here on WGS Radio, so he was just a little bit late, but now I do understand that
better
you
late
have,
than never.
Yes, better late than never. That is the correct saying right there. Now, Mr. Price, I do understand that you have actually traveled overseas, especially in Japan, and you've wrestled in several areas, a lot in Japan. Can you tell us what was your experience like wrestling in an overseas country like that?
I love going overseas. Pretty much went around the world. When I first went to Japan, it was for SWS, which was Kendo Sakurada's group, and they had a deal with WWF at the time. And I was one of the few outside workers that wasn't under contract for events that was able to go over. And going overseas and working Japan's like going to paradise. I love working. They work stiff. They work hard. And you work a lot over there. We were a 6-week tour. We worked every day except the last day because we were coming home.
What are the differences as compared to wrestling in the United States? What are some of the differences, the things that they differ with overseas when it comes to wrestling here in the United States?
Well, it depends on where you're at. In Europe, they wrestle in rounds. If you go to Mexico, they don't work to the left; they work to the right. Japan, all rings are 20 by 20, which I think Vince used to use a 20 by 20. I'm not sure if he's still using one or not, but most of the indie shows, you may get a 14 by 14, you may get a 16 by 16. Not often you get a 20 by 20. That's a big difference. Has the language ever been a problem for you wrestling overseas? No, because even if the person did not speak English, the moves are the same, and they can, as you're coming at them or they're coming at you, you can see how they're coming at you and which way they're going to go with you. So wrestling's international. That's the international language.
Now, as I stated before in your intro, you've also worked in WCW and ECW. I was wondering if you could tell us about your experiences in WCW.
WCW was quite the experience. It was kind of towards the end of WCW. They were just throwing out contracts, and I picked one up. It was a per-night contract. Went in, worked whatever they felt like throwing on. I didn't do maybe once or twice that I worked on TV for them, and did a lot of house shows for them, and went over to Europe and went to Germany for WCW.
And now overseas, have you ever worked for the IWGP?
No, I haven't.
Or that's also considered the New Japan Pro Wrestling company over there. Am I correct?
Yes. That's
okay.
correct.
All right. Now, how did you happen into Paul Heyman and ECW?
Well, I ran into Paul Heyman at WCW. 95, 96, we were running out of Memphis. ECW, USWA, and WWF at the time they were combining together and doing shows. They were kind of looking for the start of the little, I guess, farm league territory. And they were running 6 nights a week, and we were combining talent. And Paul, I worked with Tommy Dreamer and some other guys, Sandman and some other guys while I was there. And Paul Heyman happened to be on one of the shows, and we talked, and we talked about going. He had called me in '94, wanting me to move to the East Coast when they were starting the East Coast Wrestling. And at the time, he wanted me to. I would have taken Shane Douglas's spot as the franchise, but I was under contract with Japan and was unable to do it.
Looking back on your career, who have been some of your favorite people to work with anywhere? Who have been some of your favorite people to work with?
Well, I got a lot of favorite people. I think some of my best matches and favorite people were Al Perez, Dick Murdoch. I've wrestled, oh man, such a list. I knew I'd go blank on them. But Iceman King Parsons when we were in world class. Chris Adams. Mike Davis. A lot of the old timers that, Wild Bill Irwin. A lot of people that we just, you go out sometimes, you have a match with a lot of people, and sometimes they're memorable, but the matches with those people I just mentioned were ones that stick out in my head just because it was so easy and so much fun.
Mr. Price, I know the rest of my team, my WGS team, has some questions for you. Would you be all right if you took some questions from them?
Sure, come on.
All right, the first guy that's up to bat is my pay-per-view review analyst, Ashley. Ashley, you're on the line with Hardway Rod Price.
Oh, well, thank you, Rod, for coming on the show. My question is relating to, well, I did a little research on you because admittedly I wasn't fully aware because I'm not a huge wrestling fan. I've only joined it in the last 10 years, and I read up that you held the TWF Tag Team title, Texas Wrestling Federation, in case you want to know what that means, with a certain Steve Williams, who eventually came on to be Stone Cold Steve Austin back in 1990. Now, that was pretty much in his rookie year. When you think back to that match, could you see any signs there of, when you saw him, you thought, right, he could go somewhere in the future?
No, I thought he was the shit, so he should quit and burn his boots. No, I'm kidding. Steve always had outstanding raw talent. He showed it then, and over time, he just kept on getting better and better. As we all know, as he went on to be Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Caller from the 559 area code. What's your name and where are you from? You caller on the line.
Hello, this is Out of the Box.
Oh, how you doing, Out of the Box?
Justin.
How you doing?
Hey, Mr. Price, I'd like to ask you, have you ever wrestled Ric Flair?
Yes, I wrestled Ric Flair on a Monday Night Raw.
Can you tell us what was it like to work with such a legendary figure, a legendary name as the Nature Boy?
Oh, Nature Boy was, as a kid, or I guess as a young fan growing up, and I watched a lot of Ric Flair, and I was thinking, man, I'm actually in the ring with him. But it was my honor and my pleasure. It was a good match, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Another person we have here on the line right now is the Iron Reverend himself, Reverend Ric Flair. You're on the line with Hardway Rod Price.
And I still have my pants on, I swear to God. Ron, it's great to have you on the show. I'm a year older than you, and I was in the business in New York and the Indies back in 83, 84. And do you remember those nights when you were lucky if you got like $25 to $50 for showing up at the arena? And how much has that changed for you now? I mean, wrestling's come such a long way since then.
I can remember traveling 6 hours for that $25. Yes, wrestling is, for me, has been good. You know, you pay your dues, you travel those hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, to hope to work, and then when you do work, they hand you that $25. But that's just all about being on the road, paying your dues, getting your name out there, and hopefully catching. Now, I have one or two more promoters that are going to give you a look. I was blessed and fortunate to have good exposure when I was young, and I had a lot of good people around me that gave me good advice and directed me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do believe we have another guest on the line. If he's willing to come on, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe Nick Bondage is on the line. Mr. Bondage, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Billy, very much.
Well, how are you doing this fine evening, Mr. Bondage?
I'm doing well. I'm just recovering from a long weekend this week. Kind of lost my voice yesterday. I'm trying to gain that back for this weekend so I can yell and scream at some more fans and tell them exactly where to go. I did have one thing that I wanted to say. It's not necessarily a question for Rod Price, but more like a statement. And I've been fortunate enough to be on the road with this man, and the pedigree of wrestling knowledge that he carries with him cannot be measured by any means. And to be fortunate enough to get a rub from this gentleman is definitely a blessing, and it's definitely not one to be taken lightly. And I thank you, Rod, very much for not only being my friend, but my confidant and my mentor, and just a sympathetic ear as well. So, and I wanted to say also, thank you very much for setting the table for guys like me to eat off of.
Nick, I appreciate it, brother. That trip on the road is just one of many. So pack your bag and get ready to go, because we got some more ahead of us. I still got some gas in the tank. I enjoy being around. I love being around young guys young talent that respect the business, as Nick does. I love being around people like Nick that just have the knowledge. They know their history. They respect what the guys before us have done, that we can have the privilege to do this professional wrestling. And I think a lot of young punks out there that have no business being in this ring, have no business being in my business, the professional wrestling business. There's too many of them, and they need to be weeded out.
We've said it many a time on this podcast, on this very show, that you have to respect wrestling's past to appreciate wrestling today and what wrestling has in store in the future. Mr. Price, a question to you, sir. If you had a chance right now to sit down with some of the younger, the newer talent in professional wrestling today and sit them down and give them some key pieces of advice, what kind of advice would you give them?
If you're going to be a professional wrestler, first of all, look like one. Spend the money, get some boots, get you some tights, look like a professional wrestler. Get rid of the tennis shoes, get rid of the kick pads. If I see another pair of kick pads on some kid, I'm going to choke him. I'm tired of seeing this. But you sit them down, and if they would listen to me, I'd tell them, put your time in the ring. You don't have the honor or privilege, as I did, to be able to craft and polish my craft as I did by working show to show, night to night. Those days are gone. So going in and getting in a ring once a month, and doing 50 spots and calling yourself a wrestler, that's crap. Get in there, learn the business, learn the psychology of it, learn everything you can possibly learn if you want to be a professional wrestler. That's going to get you a lot further than buying a pair of kick pads and having mommy sew you a pair of tights and pat you on the back after one night, once a month wrestling.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is official advice from Mr. Rod Price. Yes, Mr. Bondage.
Billy, if I could, I did have one question for Rod, and then I'll turn the show back over to you. Rod, one question for you, brother. If knowing what you know now and been where you've been, if you had the opportunity to go back, would you do it again?
I would, in a heartbeat. I've had 21 surgeries, probably facing 5 more within the next 2 years. But I wouldn't give it up for nothing, Nick. I would drop everything, sell everything, divorce everything I had to go do it one more time. I'd love to do it again.
Words of wisdom for the younger generation coming up. You're going to miss birthdays. You're going to miss parties. You're going to miss weddings, anniversaries, births of your babies. If this business is that important to you, right out of the mouth of Hardway, it comes. That's what it's going to take. And I'll leave it at that. Billy, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bondage, and thank you for calling in tonight, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Price, another person we have on the line, well, he was just a little tardy to the party, but he is here. Again, he is my blog/youth analyst, Rick Starr. Rick, you are on the line with the Hardway Rod Price.
Mr. Price, welcome to the show. It's an honor having you here. Since you talked about a couple of the modern people, modern wrestlers, I would like to kind of touch on that with some news. As you know, I'm not sure if you heard about it. Jeff Hardy, some fans came into to the Impact Zone and wanted to get some pictures with Jeff Hardy after they paid them, and Jeff Hardy threw the money back and told them to go buy groceries. Do you think that was trying to get some heat as to raise some heat, as a heel, or do you think he was having a meltdown? What's your take on that?
Well, I have no idea what he was thinking at the time, but it sounds like good old-fashioned heat to me.
Okay, fair enough. And the second one I'd like to talk about, on the other one over in the WWE, as you know, Survivor Series is coming up. John Cena has he has to do the release from the Nexus or fired, and he's at a crossroads where he could, the WWE could push him to do a heel, or he could continue on to that Superman type character.
Rick,
what do you think
Rick,
So I want to use the word Superman.
Wait, Rick, before you ask this question, Mr. Price, let me ask you this question. What are your thoughts about this whole Nexus storyline that's going on WWE right now?
Well, I can be quite honest with you. I don't watch that crap. Whenever they start a show with 30 minutes of talking, and then they put that crap in the ring that they call wrestling, I turn it off. I can't stand to watch it. I flip it over to TNA, and I see the Hogan Flair hour. I mean, we need a company that's going to send some real wrestling out there, that's going to push some newer, better, good talent than what they're pushing. I don't know what's up Vince's ass. I don't know what Flair and Hogan are doing. Well, outside of their egos, I have no idea what's going on, man. All I know is there's a need and a want for some good old professional wrestling, old school wrestling.
Again, Rick, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
He said it all, I think.
Another person we have on the line here, Mr. Price, is Andy. Andy, you're on the line with the Hardway Rod Price.
Hi, Rod. Hope you're well.
Good, I'm good. Thanks for calling.
I was going to ask you the same question Ashley asked with being a big Stone Cold fan, but is there anybody else that you've actually fought in your career that you've seen that you've thought that's the future superstar in the making? And two questions in one. Do people in the locker room get jealous of people that do get the big push when people like yourself have been wrestling for years and years and years and see youngsters that just come straight in the business and go straight to the top?
Well, I see, over 24 years, 25 years of wrestling, I've seen some people that have been bypassed that had hell of a talent. I'm thinking right offhand Gary Young that wrestled in WCW World Class Wrestling. He was a hell of a talent. It comes down to politics. There's a lot of favoritism. I've seen some guys that earned it, and I've seen some guys that got handed it to them. Stone Cold was one that he earned everything he got, man. They tortured him, they busted him down, they tried to do everything they could against that man. And when he did that shoot with Vince, that was pure frustration coming out from all the business that he had to take coming up. But myself, I never said, oh, why not me? Why not this? Wrestling's been good to me. I've always worked. I've had to travel around to work, but I've always got called, always got booked. I look back and if I couldn't wrestle tomorrow and I had to hang it up, I would thank God for a good career and be happy with what I had.
At the end of the day, it's a nice comment for you to make, because most people are just in it for the money, and it's nice to see someone's in it for the love of the sport, the profession. The only other comments I have got is, do you think that people like, I won't name drop, but we know these second and third rate wrestlers whose fathers have been big time with the WCW or ECW WWE, do you think they deserve the push that they get? And do you think they only get the push because of their ancestors before them?
Well, the one that I think that was handed to him was Ric Flairs' kid. He was the worst I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I could agree there.
But I think Orton's
Are we talking
kid,
about Dave?
I think he's got a lot of talent. I think DiBiase's kid has got a lot of talent. I mean, they were given an opportunity because of their fathers, but it was well deserving. I think these kids are going to do well, and I think if they don't get handcuffed by Triple H up there, they should do very well.
Yeah, I quite agree. I assume you were talking about David Flair. He's got to be one of the worst wrestlers I've ever seen wrestle,
yeah.
I think. Without any doubt. I don't know how the other guys feel, but back to you for another question, Billy.
All right, well, Mr. Price, we have some questions from the Blog Talk Radio chat room for you. This one comes from Hitman 3002, and this question to you, Mr. Price, is there any wrestler in any business today, like WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Dragon Gate, etc., that you would like to wrestle, and why?
I'll wrestle anybody, anytime, and the reason why is I just like to get in there and mix it up.
All right, another person on the line here. Again, he's my cornbread to my queef, Mick37. Mick, you're on the line with Hardway Rod Price.
How does it feel getting the drive to be a champion?
How does it feel to get the drive to be a champion?
Yeah.
Something that, that goes off of how much you're drawing and how much, if you can hold the belt and hold the company. And once you get that honor, you better go out night after night, like they're coming after you, everybody's sniffing at your heels, wanting to take that belt, because that's exactly what's happening. The minute you have a lapse, the minute your production's down, they're gonna take that belt off of you. So every night you go out and try to top yourself every night. That's the drive. You don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You just take care of your own business and go out and you compete against yourself to say, last night I had a hell of a match. Tonight I'm gonna top it.
Mr. Price, speaking of champions, a lot of people who have been following WWE over these past 20, 25 some odd years, a lot of people consider the Intercontinental Championship to be a more prestigious title than the actual WWE Championship belt in itself. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the heavyweight championship belt in the WWE is it's so tarnished and flawed. But the Intercontinental, that's if they would draw it back to where they bring in international talent to compete, that would bring it up even more. But I believe that Intercontinental belt holds more brass than the heavyweight championship belt does.
We have another question from the Blog Talk Radio chat room. Again, this is Hitman 3002, and he wants to know if you can give us your opinions about the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, a.k.a. Daniel Bryan.
Well, if I knew the man, I would give you my opinion. I'm really out of touch, I guess. I'm out of the loop on the guy. Love to see some film on him, and I'd be happy to give you my opinion.
All right, I do believe that Ashley has another question for you, Ashley. Is that correct?
Yeah, my question is basically the state of women's wrestling as it is at the minute, because WWE seems to be bringing as many people that look good but don't wrestle, and TNA's knockouts have got a mix of some wrestlers but don't get showcased enough, and the ones which just have beautiful bodies who aren't as brilliant. You know, I think back to like 5 years ago when we had people like Lita and Ivory and China and people like that, people that worked hard. You know, they also look good, but they also have the wrestling skill. What's your view on the current situation with the female wrestling at the minute?
Well, I think once Jazz had left WWE, and I'm just not saying that because I trained her, but because she was a true wrestler and would get in and mix it up, a little Mighty Mouse. But that type of wrestler, I think back to the day when you had the female wrestling when it actually meant something, and they mixed it up, man. Nothing like this TNA stuff you see out there. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, they're just wanting to get ratings with tits and ass. That's all they're looking for. I think it's bad for the business. I think they need to go back and find some good talent. You may find a good-looking girl that can wrestle. Hey, great. But let's get some women in there that can actually do some holds, do some moves, and know how to wrestle. That's what it needs. This crap they put out there, like I said, it's horrible.
Well, Mr. Price, another person on the line is WWE fan. WWE fan, you're on the line with Hardway Rod Price.
What is your finisher maneuver?
My finish is the California Quake. Been using it. I actually started it in global wrestling. It's just a running power slam off the ropes, catch 'em, running power slam. California Quake.
Mr. Price, Mr. Nick Bondage has rejoined us on the line. Mr. Bondage, how you doing?
Oh, just fine. I take a little break there. You tend to get a little long-winded there, Billy Boudreaux, especially talking to my buddy Rod Price. He's a man of short time and a man with things to do, and you're taking up too much of his time. You're taking up an hour long that he'll never get back.
Well, Mr. Price, what are your final comments you have for my listeners here on WGS Radio?
My final comments are, I appreciate people coming out to the wrestling. You know, we got to have fans. I want you to show up. I want you to come to these wrestling events. Hopefully this young talent will just get a clue and will listen to people like Nick and myself that we're trying to scream in their ear, and they'll finally pick it up, and we'll get professional wrestling back to the way it's supposed to be and not this crap that's out there right now.
Hardway, Rod Price, thank you very much for joining us here on Wrestle Talk on WGS Radio. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to talk with you and ask some questions to you, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thank you, everybody that was asking me questions. Thank you. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, that has been the Hardway Rod Price.